Thank you, Larry, and all the members of the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce here tonight. I'm really honored that you chose me to be part of your first annual statewide convention, and I'm very, very sorry that I can't be with you in person in order to celebrate this historic event. You know, this month we recognized the one-year anniversary of the tragedy of Hurricane Katrina. The waters rose and then they retreated. The winds rose and died down, and now, 1 year later, the people of New Orleans are still waiting for the help that Washington promised them. 125,000 businesses that were disrupted or destroyed by the hurricanes are still waiting for a lifeline. They're waiting for rescue. After Katrina, I went down to New Orleans. In fact, I went several times. Most recently, I was there. I met with business people who told me that they're just hanging on by a thread and they need loans, they need grants, they need additional money to be able to carry over until more people come back. They're viable businesses, but they need to be able to survive this dark period. I met with Gulf Coast small business owners to ask them what they needed in order to get back on their feet. And their answers, just how much help they still need down there, reminded me of how far we still have to go in order to actually heal from Katrina. Katrina, in so many ways, was a moment of truth for America. It pulled back the curtain. It showed us the harsh realities of life for millions of Americans, of poverty and desperation, of inequality and neglect, things that many thought no longer existed in our country. Katrina showed the face of poor people in desperation, but it also showed us bankrupt leadership, an administration that turned its back consciously and willfully on the poor, on minorities. It also turned its back on our small businesses. So now, more than ever, we need to find a way to come together, to stand up and fight for all of our business owners and for our entrepreneurs, and to make real on the promises made in moments of desperation. We need to help businesses tackle the special challenges that all small business owners and their employees face every single day, not just in crisis. Katrina also reminded us just how fundamental small businesses are to the life of our communities, what they mean to the heartbeat of our economy. So tonight, we need to renew our promise to our small businesses, no matter where they are, from the Gulf Coast to Chicago and Peoria. Here in Illinois, there are over 1 million small businesses across the state. They're the backbone of our economy, and obviously, we need to keep them strong. That starts with all of you, and that's why I'm proud to honor your hard work and your service tonight. Just 2 months ago, a new Small Business Administration Chief, Stephen Preston, was sworn in. The SBA is, as I think you know, the only federal agency specifically charged with looking out for you, the small, minority, women, and veteran-owned firms across the country. And I'm not talking about handouts. I'm talking about a partnership, about a helping hand that levels the playing field instead of putting big business first. I promise you that over these next months, I and the members of the Small Business Committee are going to make sure that Steve Preston at the SBA knows who he's working for. He's working for you. And we need an SBA chief who is a champion for small businesses, not for the big lobbies or the special interests who seem to somehow be able to nibble away at the small amounts of money that are set aside for small businesses. We need someone at the helm of that agency who's going to say no to big business pressure to squeeze small firms, someone who's going to fight to keep funding for key small business programs. And this is very important. We need someone who will stand up for minority firms and minority entrepreneurs and for the minority expectations that we've put into our legislation regarding small business. Small business, minority small business entrepreneurs cannot continue to be left behind. Today, there are well over 1 million black business owners. It sounds great, and it is in terms of its numbers, until you consider that last year African Americans were 12.3% of the U.S. population, but only 4% of all businesses in the country. Here in Illinois, African Americans own less than 1/10 of the 100,000 small businesses in the state. Now, thanks to you, that number is growing, but you know as well as I do there's a lot more that we can do. We need to triple the number of African American-owned businesses. Everyone in this room is working, I know, to make that happen in Illinois, but I've got a few ideas on how we could do more in order to help our government do right by small and minority-owned businesses. I'm going to share just a couple of them with you this evening. First of all, we need to work together to tackle what people call the wealth gap. When the average white family's net worth is $67,000, but the average black family's is only $6,100, we got a real problem in this country. We have an institutional problem. And the best way to address that is to work with leaders in business and higher education, especially at historically black colleges and universities, Hispanic-serving institutions, tribal colleges, and other areas that America has sometimes neglected, and encourage entrepreneurship to actually bring economic opportunity to those areas and to those individuals, and to help minority firms get the fundamental tools that they need. I've introduced a bill in the Senate to do just that, with a grant program aimed at minorities to target students in highly skilled fields and help them start their own businesses. Minority small business owners need an advocate, someone in their corner at the SBA. That's why we need to create the Office of Minority Small Business Development. I'm working on it, but I just don't think the administration is doing enough to make certain that minority firms have a voice there. And they're not doing enough to make sure that your businesses face fair competition. Far too many small businesses, minority-owned small businesses, are still financing their businesses on credit cards, and too many still fear unfair denial from lenders. That's simply unacceptable. They deserve a fair shake, and the SBA's lending partners need to give it to them. Getting a loan to start or grow a small business is still far too tough, especially for minorities. Over the last 5 years, the SBA's two biggest loan programs, the 7A and the 504, have not done their job. Dollar for dollar, lending to African Americans has stayed stagnant, while lending to the rest of the population keeps growing and growing. It's simply not fair, and we're going to do something about it. I've proposed that we raise the dollar amount of loans that the government can back and expand the network of lenders nationwide who can issue loans for the seed money that people need to start businesses. And I'd also like to see us do a better job at protecting minority newspaper, radio, and TV station ownership across the country. I've talked with a lot of minority media owners lately, and they're telling me that they're not getting nearly their fair shake of federal advertising contracts, even though federal policy specifically says that they should be. So we need to take decisive action on this. But first, we need the facts. And to get those facts, I've asked for a major study, because it's time that we find out if the government is following its own policy, if it's truly reaching out to all sectors of the American economy. Your senator and my colleague, Barack Obama, is working with me to force the Federal Communications Commission to stand up for small business in the media, including minority-owned newspapers and broadcast stations. It's getting harder and harder to compete against the giants in the industry, which are consolidating their hold. Media ownership, for all the reasons you can understand, for our democracy itself, ought to reflect the diversity of our society, not defy it. Economic opportunity for everyone is not a lofty goal, and it's certainly not just a group of words. It's a core value here in America. It's a right that we need to make a reality for all Americans. I think you ought to be proud of the great strides that this chamber has made in fighting for Illinois small businesses, in making sure that they have what they need to stay competitive. You've accomplished a great deal, but obviously all of us, your chamber, my colleagues, and every single one of us in the Senate, we can't let up on our mission to guarantee that all of America's entrepreneurs, black and white, large and small, they all succeed and prosper, and they have an equality of opportunity and an appropriate application of the law across the board in a fair manner. You should be proud of yourselves. You've done a lot. Your effort and your example are what makes America special. So it's an honor for me to be able to fight for you and with you, for small business owners, for equal opportunity in our economy. And every day that I serve in the Senate, I'm privileged to be able to do that. Thank you for all that you do, and thank you for letting me share some thoughts with you tonight.